Hi, everybody. I'm Henry, and this is episode 3 of Writer's Block. And Brandi and I were so excited that we slept in Scarecrow for a week and did not change our clothes to share what we have to talk to you about.
Yes, that's exactly what happened.
Reintroduce yourself.
I am Brandi.
To Videoland.
This is Henry. We're here at MacGuffinPodcast.com.
And
we like
Brandi,
to talk about writerly things.
Writerly things. Is that a word?
Writerly things.
Writerly? Can I say that?
Yeah, you can say that.
Can I say scriberly?
Yeah. Scriberly.com.
Can I say authorly? Authorly.
Sure. Anyway, today we're going to take a little bit of a different track from our last couple episodes, and we're going to talk about a specific...
As Brandi stays at MacGuffin Podcast.
We're going to talk about a specific writing tool.
About writing tools, and that one might be
which is called
voiceover. Right? You see how I did that right there?
Yeah. So he just...
Oh! I broke the chair.
Gave me...
No, I really did.
This is chaos. So, we're going to talk about the convention of using voiceover in a script, and therefore in your filmed television or movie.
Right.
And pros and cons, different ways it can be employed, and, you know, in general, what we think of it. Because I feel like I hear a lot of arguments, and especially in screenwriting classes, which, you know, some of which are great and some of which are bullshit, that you should avoid voiceover at all costs if you can, because it's lazy and because it takes you from real character development and real situations on screen and lets you cheat.
Cut away to poster of adaptation. There's an introduction in that movie that is genius because it's a fat Nicolas Cage with the voiceover that opens up the film, and they cut to a screenwriting class where the teacher is quoting some Sid Field bullshit saying that you should never use a voiceover in your film. Mm-hmm. It was ironic, like a hipster. Yeah. Yeah,
totally. So, I mean, I definitely think that there are projects out there that either the voiceover is too much, and even on stuff I like, for example, Dexter, I would say the voiceover is too much in a lot of situations, you know?
No.
Oh, I mean, at times I like it because he is sort of a stoic character, and it's nice to get inside of his head a little bit, especially if we're not really sure whether he's lying to the person that he's talking to until the voiceover kicks in or whatever.
Well, it's also...
But sometimes it's just like, I could feel my dark passenger coming along, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, ugh, like, we know. Like, you're on your way to murder someone. Like, I don't need to be told that that's, like, a thing that you shouldn't do.
We see the knife. I think it's a vehicle for that show, though, because they kind of take...
I think it's too much of a crutch at times.
They kind of take Bright Miami in its colorful essence.
I think that's... But that's the argument against using voiceover, is when it goes from being something that enhances what's going on
Henry is unable to get
to
a
being
word
a
out.
crutch. What were you going to say about Miami?
So Dexter's very bright. The colors are very bright, but the substances are very dark, and I think they kind of do a reverse film noir thing, and I think that voiceover always brings it back to the PI, the cop side.
Yeah, but I think it's just too much of it, and I think that a lot of what you're saying they accomplish with the music,
right.
And they don't necessarily need the voiceover to kick in quite so often. Like, sometimes it takes me out of the action that I'm watching right then.
You win this one.
Another show that I think does a really bad job with their voiceover, and this is a show that I actually like, is Grey's Anatomy. Because they only have it at the very beginning and the very end of the show, and it's almost always Meredith, and if it's ever another character, then that's like a huge gimmick. It's like, oh my god, McDreamy's doing the voiceover this week.
You're gonna have to run with this.
To like tie together all the themes of the show and hit you over the head with it.
I know nothing about the show, so you're just gonna have to take this.
Okay,
for the
well, we don't
next
have to.
10 minutes.
I just wanted to bring it up as another example. There are a lot of TV shows, once you start to think about it, that use narration, and some of them do it really brilliantly. And I think, for the most part, those are the ones that go sort of off the beaten track with it, rather than just having your main character, like Meredith or like Dexter, saying what they're saying. Something like Arrested Development. where so many of the jokes come in the narration, or something like The Wonder Years, which is, you know, we have a completely different perspective of adult Kevin
Stand by
talking.
Me.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So if it's not enhancing the perspective of what's going on your screen, rather than just describing what a character at that moment is thinking, then I don't really see what the point of it is. And in that case, I do think that it is a little bit lazy.
So I think we should tell our people why, you know, the writing schools tell them not to use a voiceover and whatnot. And I don't know what your opinion is. I think it goes to the age-old theory that a movie's job is to show you the story when a book's job is to tell you it. And so the reason why they call it lazy is because a lot of people use the voiceover to relay information quickly. You open up the opening title sequence to 1985, and Duncan MacLeod walks out on the screen, and he goes, "I am Duncan MacLeod. I was born 200 years ago. I am a Highlander. We go around chopping. There can be only..." Yeah. Oh, those are lyrics, but yeah,
I know.
you get the gist of it. That show always opened up with it, so no matter where you were, you'd be like, "Oh, this is about a Scottish guy that chops off heads." But I think, you know, even though you're verbally stating facts, you can use the voiceover to also assist the film to go into its visual world. And I think Risky Business did an awesome job with that, where they used it as a tool, because every time Tom Cruise did it, he created a connection with the audience by breaking the fourth wall. And so the narrator was now a character, and it wasn't just Tom Cruise, but it was a ego of Tom Cruise. And
yeah, I think that's definitely, like, you have to step back and ask yourself, would the script function the same way without the voiceover? And if the answer is yes, it would, except we'd have to have a scene at the beginning when, you know, the cop comes out and says, "These are the facts, men," and lays it all out, then you really, like, it didn't add anything. But, you know, you can have your sort of crime film like that, something like Double Indemnity, or any number of great film noir classics that you could follow the story without the narration, but it would be so much less entertaining, because just another layer of the story comes from that, rather than exposition, like what you're talking about.
Did Chinatown have a voiceover?
What?
Did Chinatown have a voiceover?
I don't think so, but I haven't seen it in a while. I don't think so, though.
I can't remember. But you get the idea. Dame walks into a room.
Yeah.
Quick and red and whatever the hell they say.
Yeah, so, it has to have a purpose, I think.
Yeah.
Besides tying up themes.
Do you have a favorite voiceover?
Favorite voiceover? Like, probably another film that uses it in a really creative way, where the voiceover is part of the frame story, which is, if you're not a screenplay nerd like I am, when you have a story taking place within a story, your outer story is called your frame story. The Princess Bride would probably be an example of, like, really genius narration, I think, because it is literally Peter Falk sitting there reading the story, and it starts out sort of just being like, okay, this isn't that, you know, once upon a time kind of thing, but then there are moments throughout the film that it breaks in, and it's funny how well it works, you know, because you should feel just pulled out of the world, and it's like, it's so abrupt, but it's so charming and funny that you can dive right back into it.
Hey, do you remember when we were here last week before we slept for a week, and we were talking about that one writer guy, Alan Ball?
Yes.
I love the voiceover in American Beauty.
And I would argue that is one of those films where it comes from a certain perspective, and you're clued in throughout the film to, you know, you might think that the narration is serving one function at the beginning of the film, and by the end of the film you realize that it has been something much bigger than what you thought at the beginning.
The voiceover in American Beauty is one of the reasons why I call bullshit to the people that say don't use a voiceover because it's your job to show something. Alan Ball started off as a theater writer, and I think the narrator is a huge tool used for the stage.
Oh yeah.
Like they used to have the boom, the light beam on that one guy that comes out in the corner and he talks, and then Robin Hood swings across, and they go into the play. And I think that's don't quote me on this, but I'm guessing that that's an art that came from the stage and just kind of rolled over into film.
Yeah, well, and I think also the fact that when films were first starting to tell narrative stories, they needed sort of a visual equivalent of narration, which were the intertitles.
Right.
You know, and they needed it to tell the story.
I'm Duncan MacLeod.
Would that be cool if it showed up in old-timey writing instead?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I'll just say that off-screen Spencer really wants us to talk about The Shawshank Redemption as
I've heard about
an
that
example
movie.
of some good narration. Morgan Freeman, what are you going to do?
Let's talk about Wayne's World, because that is an example of great narration. No, seriously.
It has been far too long since I've seen Wayne's World. Like, what a brilliant film.
Right. But, I mean, this is like, these movies are all over the spectrum. We have Shawshank, and we have Wayne's World, and we have American Beauty and Highlander, but all of these films used risky business, used voiceovers as a vehicle, and some of them made fun of the art adaptation, and some of them actually used them to start their story. I don't know where I was going with there. Henry keeps on talking and babbling on, and really he doesn't know what he's going to say.
So let me ask you a different question. Like, we're the reason we're talking about this is because, you know, we both consider ourselves writers. So have you ever written anything where you were writing using narration or voiceover? I
have 3 short films that I used narration for, and one of them, the entire film, 13 minutes and 56 seconds, is narrated. There's a voiceover going on the entire thing.
Wow.
That's a movie called Emerald City, and Spencer's going to put links to that video.
I didn't ask him this question just so we could put some links. I swear I didn't. So what is it like writing a script with voiceover?
It really was a tool for Emerald City because the film was about hip hop, and I wanted to make sure that we had the language on while we visually showed the music. And for that, it was really easy because I embodied the character through a monologue as he talked about a dream that he had. And you're right, we're a little niche-y, little cliche. This one isn't at all. Watch it. What was hard was in some of the other ones, I recently wrapped up a film that I wrote called Phoenix Falling, and in that one, the narrator was an infomercial that was going on in the background. And even though there were similarities to what was actually being shown, it was more the juxtaposition and the contrast. And then in the third one, it was an audiobook because it was about a haunted audiobook. That possessed people and got them to kill things.
Like The Ring, but with an audiobook.
It's called Listeners. It went to Stiff a couple years ago. Me and my friend Colin co-wrote it.
Oh, okay.
What was your question?
If you'd ever written a script that involved voiceover.
Yes, those
challenges. Did you feel like you were relying on it too much?
When I got to my third one, I almost felt like, and I guess this is what some of the screenwriter classes said, that I was using it as a crutch. So the stuff that I've been working on now, I haven't been using any voiceovers at all. I think the only one that really justified a voiceover was Emerald City, just for the aspect that the language was such an important part because I knew everything else was going to be visually showing the feeling of music. I could make an excuse for it for Phoenix Falling, and for Listeners, I wanted to make a movie about a haunted audiobook.
All right, well, if you have any thoughts on your favorite voiceovers in films or in television, or
Brandi
ones that absolutely drive you crazy, please tell us in the comments.
I don't know why she thinks voiceovers are driving her crazy, but she keeps on talking about MacGuffinPodcast.com. In her mind, she wants you to subscribe, and she wants you to comment and talk about how dreamy and sexy Henry Daryl McComas is.
Yeah. See you next time.
Henry waves to the camera.
Those are more of stage directions than narration.
Shut up.